Yes.
Speaking of where teams are relative to each other, it's time for power rankings. So these are my power rankings as we sit here in week 6, presented by Citi. It's just a straight power ranking. So these are the teams that I personally have ranked, if we're talking like at large, just basically who is the best right now. I put Alabama at number 1 because of that win over Georgia. This is, again, snapshot of time. They may not be the best team in the country, but that will work itself out. Right now, best win in the country. They get number 1. Ohio State, number 2. I trust them. I think that even though they have not really been pushed or challenged, I think they have incredible talent. It is evident every single time you watch the Buckeyes. We're going to talk about Jeremiah Smith as we preview their game later in the segment, but
Man.
so good. Him and Ryan Williams, like, what is up with these true freshman receivers?
I mean, Ryan Williams, 17. I mean, everybody's talking about it, but those two guys are of another world.
They really are. So, yes, Ohio State's there despite, again, not having a big game yet. I got Texas in at number 3. They obviously have the top spot, but I just don't think that win over Michigan is as good as Alabama's win over Georgia. Plus, we're waiting for Quinn Ewers to come back. So they're not really the team that they're going to be at the end of the year until he is back and fully healthy. Georgia at number 4, because I don't want to fault them very much for losing that game. It was an absolute instant classic. And I thought we saw Georgia learn and get better as the game went on. They were clearly faced by something that they were not prepared for, had not been on tape from Kalen DeBoer and company. And they got better as the game went on. I think if that game went like 10 more minutes, they win that game. So I just feel pretty good about Georgia, even though they still have some significant issues. And I think we still have some questions about the lack of a Brock Bowers type player, but I'm keeping them at number 4, mostly for conversation's sake, but also I do believe it. And I've got Oregon in at number 5. People forgot about them. No one's been paying attention to them since the Boise State scare. And I just think like they've been handling their business. They are getting better. They're doing what they're supposed to do against teams like UCLA. So Joshua, rip it apart. Go ahead. Go at my power rankings. I know there's a team that is not on there that I knew would be a little bit controversial.
There's not a ton of ripping apart, right? Like starting from the top, Alabama, 100%. Best win in college football. Jalen Milroe, like that was, and we talked about the potential for him to have a Heisman type of situation where he could really start that campaign and say, I might be that guy. And he did. I'm with you on Ohio State, and I trust them too, but they do struggle throwing the football down the field. They've got wide receivers that can score from any point in the field, but they haven't been a big, like, throw it down the field, air yards type team. I think that comes into play at some point. And I'll also say, like, Michigan State is not there yet, but statistically, very good defense. They were leading the Big Ten in sacks heading into that game. And offensively, like, they turned the football over a ton, but they moved the ball in between the turnovers. So it was like a little bit of a sneaky challenge. It wasn't a great challenge, but they looked good against Michigan State last weekend. I'm with you on Texas. The first half against Mississippi State was like, and then they turned it on and showed us why they're one of the best teams in the country. Georgia certainly does not need to fall out of anybody's top 5 based off of what happened. And you're right about the second half of that game. That was one where they could have packed it in and said, you know what, we're just going to go home. And they fought and made that thing interesting into the last couple of minutes, which I absolutely enjoyed. But the Oregon, I'm with you. I think a lot of people did forget about Oregon. I think the shine that was maybe on them early on started to wear off. I think Tennessee is a better team than Oregon right now. I would put Tennessee in the 5 spot. They are phenomenal offensively. They are really good defensively as well. And they've shown it versus multiple opponents that I think you start to look down and say, where do these guys finish at the end of the year? Probably better teams than what Oregon's had to face in some of the scares that they had in particular, against Idaho State to start the season, an FCS opponent, and they've gotten better since then. All that to say, I'm not quite ready to put Oregon into the top 5. We'll figure them out here in not too long because Ohio State's got to travel out there, and we'll learn a ton about either one of those teams. But I'm still kind of cautiously waiting to see if Oregon really is that contender right now.
Okay, so noted SEC homer Joshua Perry would have 4 of his top 5 teams from the SEC right now?
Don't you do that. I feel like that is a bad faith argument you're making. It's not about homerism. It's not at all. It's just what I've seen so far from these teams is where I would place them. And for Oregon, still a defense that I think is good, not great. An offense I do think has improved a ton. I need to see a little bit more. I'm more cautious about them than I am about Tennessee.
Listen, I'm not gonna say that Tennessee is not a really good team. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if this is the right order of the best SEC teams, and I don't know. Like, I didn't know how to pick between Georgia and Tennessee. Didn't want to have all the SEC teams. Peeling back the curtain just a little bit, but no, I do trust that Oregon is good. I just really cannot rank these SEC teams. They're really hard right now. And we don't have enough data points, which we will get in the next couple of weeks.